Hi, my name's Dr. Beth Healey. I'm an emergency medicine doctor, and a few years ago this took me to Antarctica, where I was working for the European Space Agency as a researcher looking at the effects of isolation on the overwintering crew. So people really change throughout the mission, At the beginning it's a lot like Freshers Week, everyone's on best behaviours and you think, how can this possibly get tough with this group of people? We're going to have the best overwinter ever. But as time goes on, you really start to see people's true characters, and I think it's not that people change in isolation, but I think it's just a lot harder to hide who you truly are. Things that I was really interested by in terms of our group dynamics was some of the crew members actually got kind of aggressive towards other people that spent too much of their time on Skype or on their phone trying to contact loved ones, because they felt that they weren't really sort of living the experience down in Antarctica. And I think while it is important to stay connected to other people through Zoom, for example, I think it's also important to spend enough time with the group that you're isolating with, or with yourself as well, and sort of really live that moment. It's really easy when you're isolated for really small things to get hugely out of proportion. And I remember really vividly us as a crew spending a whole afternoon discussing the fact that we had actually run out of paper napkins and what we were going to do to overcome the situation. I remember people saying, oh, it's the end of civilization as we know it. The thing that I really remember is the fact that I called home to one of my best friends and I told her what I'd been up to during the day, and she had just been to work normally, and it was really refreshing to have that opportunity to speak to her and really put things into perspective. And I was like, wow, how crazy that we got so upset by that. So about halfway through the winter, I came to realise that one of our crewmates had been hiding actually some chocolate and all the nice things that we had in the roof. So at Concord you never actually run out of food because we've got a huge amount there, but we would potentially run out of sort of the nice things, so for example your Lindt chocolate. And what this crew member had been doing is that they'd been rationing it out throughout our winter period because they were worried that we would run out if we were just left to our own devices, because you could just go into the store cupboard as you liked. And initially I got really upset by it because I thought, that they're just hiding all the chocolate for themselves. But actually the more I thought about it, it's more about control. And they were actually rationing it out for the group, so it wasn't that they were keeping it for themselves, but they just really needed to feel that control over the food that we had as a group. When I got back, I suddenly realised how overwhelming it is to go into a supermarket and have 10 different choices of washing powder and 20 choices of, chocolate. Whereas actually life in Antarctica is really simple. And it's really, I find it a really positive thing to actually sort of step away from my normal day-to-day life and have that space to really think about what it is I was doing and just live a little bit more simply. So astronauts often talk about the overview effect, and what they mean by that is the opportunity to go up into space and look back down through the cupola window and really have that different perspective on Earth and their own lives. And although unfortunately, we're not all going to go to space during this current pandemic, I think it does present an opportunity for us all to really step back and have that different perspective on what it is that we're doing. And I think that can also be a positive thing for all of us.